All right. Uh, Welcome to another session in the 17th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Bales. I'm your moderator. We are fortunate to have with us Randall Fullington from the University of Colorado, where he also got his doctorate. Worked in online education for 14 years, first with Colorado Community College Online, which is a big deal, then facilitating the implementation of hybrid and fully online programs at University of Colorado Boulder. He's now Assistant Vice Provost and the Executive Director of the Office of Academic and Learning Innovation. And he's going to talk about measuring the success of scaled online programs. And I know from experience that is really essential to have that kind of data available. So
Yeah.
take it away.
Great. Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it. I'm going to go off camera here. We can focus on my slides. So I am talking about measuring success of scaled online programs. You can see in the background a little bit, my office has helped launch actually to date four scaled online degrees, starting with the Master of Science in Electrical Engineering. We've launched a data science degree, an engineering management degree. We've also launched a computer science degree, and as of yesterday, we got approval from our regents to launch an AI degree, which will be coming in the fall that we're very excited about. So that would be our fifth degree. And then in addition to that, we have about 300 plus non-credit courses on Coursera that live there and that feed into these degree programs. So you know who this guy is because Bob did such a great job of introducing me. I do have some questions. Feel free to drop them in chat. I'm curious to hear from people. What are some success metrics that you think work well? If you're not in this space, I'm talking about things like headcount, census date, things like enrollments or conferral, time to conferral, things like that. So I'd love to hear from people. I know we have a small group today, so we can either drop in chat or you can come in on audio. Great. I see completion rate from Bob.
Fairly
Kelly.
new to online programming, and I've just moved to the Drake Online program from working with other external partners.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know exactly all the metrics that we use, but
Yeah.
obviously it would be enrollment numbers and probably the
Yes.
financial components.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's great. Thank you,
Not,
Kelly.
yep, nothing profound there. Sorry.
That is profound. I mean, I think that's something that will come up many times throughout this presentation, especially the financial piece. Megan or Knox, do you guys have anything you want to add to chat? Oh, Knox looks like growth of enrollments. Yeah, absolutely. And then I see Bob, GPA versus on-campus programs. That's great. Any program success metrics that you don't think work well, that we have to report on, but maybe you think are insufficient? This could be reporting to internal sources at the university, could be national data, like through iPads, or it could be state data, things like that. Excellent, Megan. Yeah, understand. Interestingly enough, our design side, the metrics they see, especially on Coursera, tend to be course ratings. So we get reports on how high a course is ranked according to its ratings. It's a five-star system, and that is something that we continually bang our heads up against the wall with because it's very much mimicking things that you see on Amazon or other marketplaces. And graduate education is not the same as buying a toothbrush or an iron. Um, that five stars really is subjective, especially in an educational environment, because sometimes we make it very difficult. Sometimes we want to make it a course, design the course in a way that it sticks with you for a long time, but you may not actually see the benefit at that moment, right? And so that educational moment comes much later in life. So that's something that our team has to continually wrestle with. Knox, excellent. Instructor evals can be, yep, skewed by grades given. Yeah, FCQs is what they're called here at the university, faculty course questionnaires. Interesting. Okay, this is great. I appreciate it. Thank you for that interaction. Agenda for today, I want to talk a little bit about the traditional metrics problem and then defining scaled online credentials. I think that's an important thing because this space has had a lot of questions about what does it mean to be scaled? What does it mean to be online? I do have a small group. We can run that a little bit differently, probably run it more just like I ran those intro questions where we can kind of work in a doc together. Traditional metrics problem, I'm going to revisit and then talk about some new metrics that we're thinking about at the university, followed up by another discussion. And then I have this in context with maturity models, but I don't think we'll get there today. That's a little bit more of a macro view, thinking about innovation units and how mature they've become and how that affects the programs we develop. Okay, so the traditional metrics problem, scaled online credentials, right, have structural features that can make it difficult to assess the program using those traditional metrics. When I talk about traditional metrics, a lot of the things we've just discussed today, acceptance rate, time to completion, certificates or degrees conferred, GPA on campus versus online. That is one that we are continually looking at. Growth over time, completion rate, really important, right? You want to be able to advertise that 75% of your students get their degree, undergraduate degree within 6 years, or that 90% of your graduates have found a job within 3 to 6 months, those kind of metrics. The problem is in the scaled space, a lot of the credentials are stackable, right? And so we have an audience who is interested in stacking towards a degree, but not within the normal timeline of a residential degree, or they're interested only in certain pieces of the degree. And so while it looks like they're enrolled in the degree, they're actually only ever interested in maybe a certificate or a certificate plus another couple of courses. Performance-based admissions is another piece of this that I'll come back to. These tend to be the scaled online programs really trying to help people get into the program if they want to. So we're moving away from that acceptance rate, which is really we've seen in the past really kind of a mark of exclusivity, whereas we've been moving more towards inclusivity. Goal is to admit people if they can do the work. Flexible entry and exit programs, because a lot of these are professional degrees, we see a lot of people coming and going depending on the normal fluctuations of their work calendar year, or if they have families and the summer vacations, things like that, spring breaks. So I want to define scaled online credential programs because we're using it here at CU Boulder. I'm going to actually turn my video on. I do talk to the camera, and that kind of helps me. I feel like I'm just talking to my name. So, what we mean by scaled at CU Boulder is these are large compared to residential. Obviously, there are some programs on campus that are very large. You think about our what used to be called kinesthesiology, but now it's called IPHY, integrative physiology, right? Very large program, very popular. Communications, psychology. But compared to residential, for the most part, these degree programs are very large. So we're bringing in something like 5,000 new graduate students over the past 3 years to these degree programs I talked about earlier. Lower cost also. So in order to reach scale, that cost usually is lower than the residential version. For our programs, it's about 40 to 50% cheaper in the scaled online version than it is in the residential. I do want to add a key qualification here, and that is David Joyner, who's a good colleague of ours at Georgia Tech. Highly recommend if you can attend one of his talks. He talks a lot about how scale is really the ability to scale and not the result of scale. So that's an important thing to think about too. There are many programs out there that have an ability to scale, but are still working towards that.
I have a question or
Yes, Bob.
comment. This ties in great with a session we had at 1 o'clock today, which
Great.
was facilitating faculty assessment on online campus, talking about the Tarrant County College online campus and talking about scaling.
Yeah.
And it's really better if you're going to scale, go big.
Yeah.
because the costs are about the same
Yeah.
if you're small, and you're
Yeah.
better off going big with it. And that was an interesting
Yeah.
idea to come away with.
Yeah, I agree. Dave, that I think is David's point too, where you're building in the functionality to scale, so it's better to scale, right? It might take a little while. Or here's another example from our university. Our electrical engineering degree is scaled compared to its residential, but it's not scaled compared to our data science and computer science degrees. It's different, completely different order of magnitude. We would still call both of them scaled. They still use the same technology delivery model, if there were more people that could take that electrical engineering degree, it would scale because all those features are there. Those structural features are there, as we've shown in the DS and CS degrees. And Bambi, looks like you're new to the talk, so welcome. Glad to have you.
Also that talking about the cost,
Yeah,
again, the same thing came up earlier. You don't have all the physical
that's right.
facilities that an on-campus program would require. That's a big cost savings right there.
Absolutely. And for a place like Boulder that is landlocked and already difficult to find space because of the character and history of the university and the city, it is very difficult to find new space. It's key for us to be able to go into that online space and bring more students to CU, even if they never come to campus. Yeah. So another piece there then of defining scales, what do we mean by online? There's a lot of conversations about that, especially coming out of COVID, the emergency online, remote teaching, definitely different than intentionally designed online teaching. But what we're talking about here is asynchronous, no in-person requirements. We've been very careful about that. That can be a hurdle for a lot of people who just cannot come to CU Boulder. Modularized learning, I always mess that one up, where you're learning in discrete chunks, right? So you're thinking of discrete chunks that you need to show mastery over before you can move to the next piece, rather than in a residential course, you can kind of just sit there, or like if you did as an undergrad, I kind of sat way back in the back and fell asleep a few times. Apologies to my psych professor, I missed that one. So then frequently, but always, not always partnered with an OPM. Georgia Tech, right? Largest OMSCS, largest scaled program. Originally started out with Udacity. They are now completely hosted online. We are partnered with Coursera. We have a lot of peers in this space. We have other peers who are partnered with edX or Open edX as well. One of the qualifications there is, do we have the technology in place to create a one-to-many ratio, which is a key part. You can only duplicate the faculty person so many times. Although with AI, that's changing a little bit. But you can only have one faculty person for students. So is your technology built to scale that one-to-many ratio, or is your technology still stuck in the many, meaning a faculty person with lots of TAs, and then to students? That can be a version of scale, but it's not what we're talking about here. And then credential programs, I specifically left out degree. It can lead to an accredited degree, but it also has certificates. It also has badges. It has also laser print certificates, right? All of those different kind of benchmarks along the way towards earning that degree, because these are targeted towards working professionals. We assume that working professionals know more about what they need in a curriculum than we necessarily know because of their working history. So we make a lot of it available to them. We recognize that they don't need to move through it linearly. It's open to them, so they can come in and take one chunk here or one course here and then one course there and stitch it together for their needs. So that's that marketplace requires proof of completion, right? So adding in those resume certificates, something you'd put on LinkedIn versus verified badges versus transcripted credit. Josh Kim at Dartmouth, really great, has talked a lot about, for him, a key qualification is master's degree, low cost, proven competency, because he was really thinking about it. That's where you're getting your job promotion from, but you're also trying to do it without a lot of student debt. So different competing visions here. I include the qualifications because I think it's an important part of our conversation. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to everybody here. I would love to hear how people define scale at your institution and if scale is part of your online strategy. I have a doc that we can add into if you want. I'm going to put the link to that doc in the chat. And we feel free to just take a moment, think about it, add in some thoughts you have. This is under small group one. How do you define? Does it differ from our definition? Is scale part of the online strategy? If so, how does it fit? Or are you hoping to enter the space? Looks like people got in because I see an anonymous leopard, an octopus, and a cheetah. So that's great. And if it would be easier for you, if you want to come in and either drop it in chat or say it out loud, I can record it for us here in the doc. And it might be helpful to start with question 2. Is scale part of your online strategy?
Well, I think that's a good question. Is scale part of the strategy? Now, the last couple of schools I worked with, they never really considered scale. It's just like we need to get some programs online and going.
Yes.
Well, but it wouldn't have been easy to make a big jump in scale because, as you know, there's more to it. There's the student services component that's got to be part of that. There's
Yes.
the technology support that's got to be part of it. And
Yes.
they weren't ready for that. If suddenly they said, we want to get 5,000 students, it wouldn't be able to be done anytime soon.
Yeah. That's a great point. Just like online is not cheap to run. It takes an infrastructure. Scale's the same way. Scaled online, it takes an infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah, a BSN completion course, that's really great. One of the reasons why we spent time when I originally did this presentation with my colleague Karen on defining scale was our good friends at the University of Ohio. They talked a lot about we've had nursing programs that have 3,000 people on them. That's scale, and we've had that for 20 years. And so really good conversation about what does scale actually mean, that, a little bit different than what we're doing because we kind of think of it as a MOOC delivery model, and theirs is very much not like that. But I do want to acknowledge that scale is not necessarily a new thing, especially for nursing type programs. And I'll add to that for CU, and I put this in the doc, scale was always a key part of the strategy for our provost starting in about 2016, 2017. He convened the entire campus. We had it was called Academic Futures and working groups to talk about many different things, but it's where our teaching and learning group came out of, or our Center for Teaching and Learning, a number of other things. But having scaled online was part of that because we had a very small online footprint. And at the time, if you Googled it or you asked people about online at CU, they would say, you guys have tons of programs. But it turns out we didn't. That was CU Denver. But everyone thought it was us. So we really needed to intentionally make way in that space. We had our registrar, our bursar, our CFO, our provost, and academic affairs come together and to figure out how are we going to make this step. And that's the current office we have today. It was originally called Strategic Initiatives. Now it's Academic Innovation.
So,
Okay, this
so,
Mhm.
so really, when you're looking at offering new online programs, one of the
Yeah.
first things is it scalable?
Yes.
And not really if somebody has, say, a niche
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice, but it's not really scalable,
Yes. Yeah.
or you're gonna be able to build on it over time.
Yes. And the technology needed and the marketing dollars needed as well, those are big components. So If those aren't in place, it can be a really big financial investment. I will be honest, we had a very fortunate situation where our partnership with Coursera worked out well. In that case, the OPM worked really well for us. That has not been the case, as we all know, for other universities. We've been very fortunate. Other universities have invested a lot and done it themselves, or went on and bought places like Ashford University or Kaplan and things like that. Okay, great. So the traditional metrics problem, I'm going to revisit this one here. Scaled online can have structural features that I alluded to before that make it very difficult to assess the program using those traditional metrics. This came out of our regents asking us, how many students are in your course or in your program? Our continuing ed unit, who has traditional online programs, could provide a really easy, clear answer. We have a much harder time answering that. We can give you numbers, but we always have to include a paragraph to explain what the numbers mean. And so we thought, how do we get to a place where we can normalize some of this reporting and we don't have to catch up to those traditional metrics? So these disruptive structural features, non-traditional application requirements. We do performance-based admissions for our 4, soon to be 5 master's programs. That means we don't require an application fee, no letters of recommendation, no application. We don't even require verification of an undergraduate transcript. If you can do the work by passing 3 courses with a 3.0 or better in a pathway, what we call a pathway specialization, then you gain admission to the degree. And then you have to follow all the other standard graduate school rules about maintaining a certain GPA, things like that. Other universities have pathways. Georgia Tech, Illinois, they both have performance-based versions. Others have, like ASU, right, their pathways to their undergraduate degrees through the Starbucks program. Flexible entrance and stop out policies for us. We have fluid and multiple entry points. We offer sessions 6 times a year for 8 weeks at a time. There's no penalty if you need to take a session off. If you take a couple of sessions off, that's fine too. We recognize that family issues come up, adult issues come up, whatever adulting might look like for that person, or jobs where people are waiting on a paycheck to pay for their next class. They may need to wait until their bonus comes in or something like that, whatever it might be. We've really tailored this to be flexible for people. They can stop out for 2 years and then they're actually discontinued, but the way you get recontinued is by enrolling in a course and checking the box again. Again, really flexible entry exit. Stackable and customizable curriculum. Like I said before, there are multiple paths to complete a credential, but we trust that the learner has their own goals and that they know what they need. So traditional metrics, right? Number of applications and acceptance rate. How exclusive are you? Head count. How many people do you have at a census date? Well, we don't have a census date because you can enroll 2 weeks before the course starts all the way till 2 weeks before it ends. Really open there. Time to credential. Usually that's 2 to 4 years. We offer 8 years because it's a professional audience. That said, we're not sure 8 years is right. We only have one program that is older than 5 years. So we're still trying to figure out if 8's the right time. Maybe it needs to be 6. We're not quite sure. And then credentials conferred, right, is the next. Oops, I'm going to go back 1 page here. Credentials conferred, obviously a really big, important one. We're not entirely sure that all of our students want the degree. We're not sure yet. There can be a lot of things mixed up in there that their employer will only reimburse if they're admitted into a degree program, but they really just need the grad cert, or they really just need the latest units on AI and data science, things like that. So we really allow for some flexibility there. So what are these new metrics we're proposing? Things like number of applications and acceptance rate to preparing learners to succeed in the program, right? That's what we're really interested in here. Are we preparing a broad audience to succeed in the program after they are admitted? Somebody once asked us at a engineering management conference, they said, what's your acceptance rate or what's your pass rate for the pathway specializations? And we've done some research on that. We know it's right around 63%. So we know that, not everyone can do this work, and that makes sense. It's graduate level work. But even more importantly, we said we would love to get that to 100% because we want to prepare these people to achieve their goals. So if we can provide bridging content which we've done, non-credit content before the degree to help them catch up. We used to, before we had that, send them off to other universities. Go to Rice and take this great Python course. Go to, this other Johns Hopkins and take this data science course. Then come back when you're ready. Head count to student credit hours. This is where we talk about the financial piece that came up earlier. I think Kelly, maybe you brought it up, or Knox might have. Do we have financial alignment between the program structure, the features, and our university strategy? So is this because so many of these types of programs are auxiliary funded, meaning they have to pay for themselves out of the revenue they generate? Are they achieving those goals and those needs? So are they enrolling enough people to pay for the program? Are they enrolling enough people to grow the program? And are they enrolling enough people to grow and build new programs? That's been a key strategy for us. So it can be a little crass when we're talking about higher education, thinking about how much revenue is this generating, but it's a key part that we have to consider and something that we need to think about because it allows us as a unit, my ALI office, we get paid out of these programs, which allows us to build new programs, which allows us also to work with residential faculty on their pedagogy. And it allows us to be a part of that university community and really be innovative for everybody. But we don't exist without the revenue from these programs.
With the demographics,
Mhm.
the way they look going forward, with fewer high school graduates,
Yeah. Yeah.
the people you reach are really the ones who are going to be funding everything, you might say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're not the 18-year-olds. They're the people already working and they want to improve themselves. That's a big pool out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have had younger people. We actually had someone who was 12 enter into our program, and we said, well, actually, you can't. There's federal rules against that. Come back later. And he said, fine, I'll come back when I turn 13 next month. And then, so we have had some of those folks. But most of our people, I've talked already about performance-based admissions, no undergraduate verification. To be honest, the majority of our students are 25 to 40 years old. They already have an undergraduate degree. Many of them have a master's. They're trying to change careers or upskill. These are folks who chose our program, who are very much not the 18 to 22-year-olds. They chose our program because they're not going to go find their letters of recommendation. They're not going to hunt down faculty from 20 years ago. They want to just jump into this program and start learning. So that's been a big thing for us. Time to credential, 2 to 4 years usually for a graduate program, especially for our residential degrees. But we want to talk about ensuring success within learners' limitations. Are we helping them persist according to their schedule? Do you need to take 2 sessions off? Great. Will you be better prepared or better able to do this when you come back? We'll provide that for you then, if taking time off is helpful to you. Credentials conferred. Moving from that to matching learner intent to and goals to the conferral outcome. That has been a big thing for us. We are a university who uses campus solutions. There is not a field in campus solutions to allow to record intent. There is a field for degree, right, and your major, but not intent, because we don't really look at that when someone applies to a residential degree. They've applied to a specific program, a specific degree program, so we know what they're interested in. For us, we don't do that. And so we've had to really struggle with how do we figure out what people are interested in? How do we record that in a way that's not an official record because interest changes? You might start out with just a course, but then you want to change to a certificate, and then you might want to change to the full degree, and then you might actually come back and take another certificate. Interest changes over time, so we're trying to figure out the best way to record that and match that up to their outcomes. Did your interest align with your outcomes? Ensuring learners achieve those learning outcomes. So now going back to are we giving them the skills and the knowledge they need for their professional setting? And that has been a really big one for us. We are very concerned about that. We want to make sure they're getting the same high quality education that leads to the same learning objectives that we have on campus. So we have a unit of ours who's devoted to that to make sure we're achieving those goals. Okay, audience participation number two. Um, Small group number two. How are these proposed new metrics more accurate measures of success? What is the strength? What is missing? We don't need to go to the doc if we don't want to. We can just, throw things in chat, or come off mute if you'd like. Actually don't
I,
like the how are these. I like better are these. Sorry, Bob.
okay. I can think of one that might be missing. Do you
Yeah.
ever follow up with the students after they've attained their credential? I'd want to find out, did it make a difference for them? Did they achieve the goal they wanted? A better job or a pay increase or something like that?
Yeah, that's great. We have sometimes, interestingly enough, we have some people who graduate and come back on our team. We call them course facilitators. They course facilitate for us, which is great. And they want to stay involved in that community. And so we're able to hear from them. This is something we've also struggled with in terms of response rate from people after they leave. So it's a great thing to pursue. And it's something we're interested, but we're always trying to find out how to get more information from them. Kelly, it looks like you came off
Yeah,
mute.
yeah, I think post COVID, I think that there's just a little bit more flexibility and there's just less rigidity in how people are approaching any type of credentialing or degree
Yeah.
achievements. And I think that, like, as you pose, there's, you have a longer amount of time to be able to get your degree. And I think realistically, with an older population or a working population, that's essential to kind of understand that there's going to be life circumstances and
Yeah.
things that come up professionally and personally, so that they realize, hey, I have time, I have the time, I can incorporate this into my life, and it's not going to be as this, it's sure it's going to be stressful, but there's going to be ways to build it into their current lifestyle.
Yes. How do you communicate that to the National Reporting House? Or even put it this way, how do you report that to US News and World Report, right? Which has very strict definitions of like completion rate, acceptance rate, things like that. And then your US News and World Report is a hard one because there's reputation involved too. But for other ranking systems, it's still difficult to show what we're doing here. So for example, I think we were ranked in the Newsweek poll like 150th or something like that. Georgia
Yeah.
Tech was ranked 125th. They're
And
the
all
number one program.
and all those ranking systems, same, they probably haven't updated
Yes.
how they're looking at the current adulting
Yeah.
professional who's looking for certification or a new degree or
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, that would probably be the number one thing that I would be looking for in a program
Yeah.
if I was shopping.
Yeah. That's great. We get to look at the Reddit thread sometimes for our programs, and you get a lot of people in there saying, "Is this real? Is this a legitimate degree?" And what's great is we have good people in the good people. They might be bad people. I don't know. We have anonymous people in the Reddit channels who say, "Yes, this is real, and this is graduate education, and this is my
I
experience." Yeah.
Yeah. Tracking everyone, I mean, that
Yeah.
complicates things too, especially if it's sort of a self-paced and,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's from the college or university standpoint, I think that makes
Yeah.
things harder.
Yeah.
But I think that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just the reality is that's what people want in my humble opinion.
Yeah. I think that is such an important piece about this. The difficulty in tracking these kind of metrics is something that we have wrestled with our registrar, with our grad school, and we have really collaborative, good, strong relationships with them, and they are very innovative. But we kind of continually go back and forth on, is this a trackable thing or not? Is this something we can record or not? And really, I think it's because we haven't done it before, and we're really trying to figure that out. But I agree, tracking people is difficult. I saw someone in the doc say, not sure if you can measure engagement based on activity in the LMS. Time spent does not mean time engaged necessarily. That's a great point. I want to complicate this a bit more for our experience. Because we don't require an application and because our 4 credit courses cost what I would say is still substantial money. It's for 1 credit, it's either $667 or it's $525. So a student is making an investment. That's not huge compared to residential, but it's still a chunk of money. We don't want anyone to pay tuition and get in a 4 credit course only to find that they really can't do this. We don't want that to be the testing ground. So we open up all of our courses in a non-credit version and allow people to start there. And then once they feel confident, they can upgrade to the 4 credit. Their progress follows them, and then they're able to continue off from where they stopped. So that's great. I love that. I love that it gives people a chance to practice and get confident. There are some challenges that come with that we're continuing to iterate on and address. But one thing that we've noticed is you have some people who do a lot of non-credit work, and then all of a sudden they get in the 4 credit course and they're done with a 1 credit course in 1 week. It looks like they sailed through that 4 credit course, but we don't know that because we don't know how much time they spent in the non-credit course because they're anonymous there. We don't have insight into who they are. That's by design. When we only know who they are when they come to us as a student and have what we call an identity, right? A CUBOLDER identity. So it looks like they're completing the program really fast, but that's not true. They've done quite a bit of work before that point. So I absolutely can empathize with that engagement activity in the LMS. It looks very different for this population.
It's also helpful for um, someone it's been 10 years since they graduated.
Yes. Yeah.
You lose the skills you had as a
Yeah.
grad student or undergraduate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. You lose, especially a lot of our graduate work, right, is theory foundation. As a master's program is, you're really mastering the ideas behind the content, not just the skills you use in the workplace. So that can be a challenge for them in getting back into that way of thinking, right? And it's much less sort of the agile, work stream you might have where you're checking in and doing sprints on Monday and then you're checking in on Friday. It's a very different kind of approach to engagement. This is great. So, uh, final feedback. I know we're a little early, but I still think this is fine. Um, I'd like to hear about what you guys think and step back rather than the specifics. What do you think about this approach? Or what do you think about the solutions proposed? I can throw one at you right now when I gave this talk the first time. A bunch of people said, this is great, but I have to report to my state head count. I have to send in to the federal government completion rate, demographics, application rate, all of that in order to maintain funding and to maintain accreditation. So I think an important thing is we're not necessarily replacing, we're trying to update. We're trying to think about how do we, as Kelly said, in this post-COVID world, really think about what the goals are for our students and whether or not we're meeting those goals. But I'd love to hear from you guys.
Without question, the kind of flexibility your courses provide
Yeah.
are exactly what, say, people like me would
Yeah.
want to come and get a degree. I wouldn't feel pressured at all.
Yeah.
And I guess the key thing is in your marketing, getting that across
Yeah.
to potential students.
Yeah. Can you say a little more, Bob, about that? What are you getting which piece across?
About the flexibility and
Yeah,
about the being able to take it as a non-credit course to
yeah,
find out if it's something you can do before
yeah,
you pay your money.
yes,
I think that's great.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the question would be, can only a school the size of Colorado do
yes,
something like that?
yes. Great question. You won't necessarily be on the record here, Kelly, but Drake, could something like this happen at Drake? I think you said you were from Drake.
We, uh, um, all of the online programs are for degrees.
Mhm.
We don't have, to my knowledge, we don't have anything, that is, like a exploratory, and then you can, sort of ease your way into it. I think that, that's not
Yeah,
the model that we have, but I do think there is, you know, like in person, Drake has like a big cohort program, so you're
yeah,
with the same people, you're tracked, you develop deep relationships with those people, which I think is cool for in person, but then
yeah,
online, that's not the situation.
yeah,
It's, more extended time, understanding of your adulting life
yeah,
and fitting it
yeah,
into your schedule.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know if that's something that anyone would want to explore
yeah,
is starting off with that. But I do work with a sort of a teacher graduate programs that are
mhm,
external. In Iowa, we have it's the Area Education Association, and so there's teachers that seek lane changes, or they use the graduate credits uh, for an elective,
yeah,
and so that is lower stakes, and people just, teachers enjoy taking graduate courses just to
yeah,
expand knowledge. So,
yes,
in some ways we do have some alternatives, but that's not widely
yeah,
marketed, because it's sort of from an external source, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
that does. Yeah, absolutely. When I started in the graduate school in 2016, one of the first programs I worked on um, was an applied Shakespeare program. Right, we were professional graduate programs, and I say programs there because they were certificates and degrees, but it was a way for a university system that receives a small amount of its budget from the state, even though we are the state institution, to then be able to grow. So we've started doing these professional programs. And we did applied Shakespeare, and it was similar to like what you're saying. It's really interesting. It was hybrid, so you did some of it online for the first semester, and then you spent 2 weeks on campus. My mom did that when she was 67. She was a teacher, a fifth grade teacher for 35, 40 she still wanted to come and do it, and that was a really, really good experience for her. That, interestingly enough, helped grow into these scaled programs because we started to see how do we get more people that can't come to campus for those 2 weeks into these kinds of programs. So that program, the Applied Shakespeare one, started building some other non-credit only courses on the Coursera platform to kind of increase the reach, right, and participation options for people.
Right. Yeah, I kind of, I don't know if I fully understand your Coursera
Yeah.
programming, but it sort of feels like micro credentials, or can they build it? I mean, they can build it
Yeah.
to apply it, correct?
Yes. So all of our programs, 30 credit programs that are usually taught in 1 credit courses. and students can take them in any order they want. But they do the 1 credit at a time. For the electrical engineering, you can choose any 30 credits you want. The other
Yep.
degree programs have a core, which is usually about 9 credits, and then the remainder is elective credits. So there is some guidance there for those, but it is stacking those. You get a completion certificate from Coursera every time you finish a course. From us, you get transcripted credit until you hit those bigger benchmarks of graduate certificate and then degree.
People appreciate that too because it's a build your own adventure, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's this is what I need, this is what I know that I need,
Yeah,
or something that I would like to explore to be a
yeah.
a better professional. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, well, what we did after that was we even opened up our degree program so that people in one degree program could take electives from other programs. We started doing that with engineering management. So, short timeline, we had our electrical engineering live for about a year and a half, then data science launched, and then the next year we launched engineering management. We realized, or we anticipated, and we were actually right this time, which was great. Anticipated that people in data science and electrical engineering might want management courses too, because they
Yeah.
may be a person who has a team that they just inherited because they've been at the work for 10, 12 years, right? And so they want some of those skills. So we made it so they could earn their engineering management certificate as an elective inside of their degree program in data science or electrical engineering. And that has been, we've seen really cool elective sharing, is what we call it. Really cool, big traffic. But then with our AI degree that we're thinking of, is that AI is not single discipline. It is interdisciplinary by nature, right? There are those people who really want to understand about building it, understanding the back end, but there are so many people of how do I apply it to data science? How do I apply it in electrical engineering?
Yeah.
Um,
And that
so
one's
we,
going to be a
yeah,
tricky one because that one's going to keep evolving so quickly,
yeah,
but that's what makes it interesting too.
yeah. We talked with the CEO of a startup, and he gave a presentation at South by Southwest. So this was just about a year ago, last March. I talked to him afterward, and he said, "My main advice is don't build your courses until you launch it."
Yeah.
That's not something we can do.
Yeah.
But, but yeah, it's rapidly changing.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you say that your partnership with Coursera only involves the non-credit courses?
So, great question. It involves non-credit. Our 4 credit versions live on that platform as well. That's why we're able to do the item linking, and that when you upgrade, all your progress follows. It's really very seamless on their platform. We've actually loved that feature. Um, they do marketing for us on the non-credit side. I'm sorry, the 4 credit side. They do marketing and they do top of funnel nurturing recruitment. They don't really do recruitment, and we've got to be very careful about that with OPMs and the scrutiny they're under. They really do some nurturing. If you complete X number of courses in a non-credit space, you're going to get some more emails about, hey, did you know about this degree program? Or they answer questions. And then they do platform support. So those have been key support features from them. Our marketing ability at the university is very good, but as with most North American universities, there was no global marketing infrastructure, and Coursera gives us that.
Okay, yeah, I asked when I was at the University of Idaho when I left 6 years ago. Well, I
Yeah,
went there. They were talking about should we partner with an OPM or
yeah,
not,
yeah,
and the debate went on,
yeah,
just a few years ago, what they started to do. But
yeah,
the concern for me was what kind of influence would an OPM have
yeah,
on deciding what courses? Because
yeah.
they're going to favor courses with high enrollment,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And what if you've got something smaller that's unique for your university? They're not going to be that interested.
Yes. That's exactly right. I won't share all the dirty laundry here, but there were definitely lots of conversations back and forth in those early days with Coursera and Sea Boulder, and we were both trying to figure it out. But we ultimately landed on, as we had to, which was a non-negotiable for us, that the university maintains all IP, the university decides everything on curriculum, and the university decides everything on tuition. Those are non-negotiables for us. And that took a while to communicate back and forth. They can recommend courses to us, but we don't have to teach it if we don't want to.
Yeah, you got to do that. Otherwise, you're going to have faculty at your
Oh,
door
yeah.
complaining. You're going
Yeah.
to probably have legislators
Yes.
complaining.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
Nobody needs that.
No. No. That said, we have gone back and forth on a couple of things. They did come, when I say back and forth, I mean we've suggested things to each other, and sometimes they've been really responsive to us, and occasionally we've been responsive to them on different ideas, and that's actually been a pretty mutually beneficial partnership. Performance-based admissions is now at Illinois Institute of Technology. I think a few other universities have a similar system that started here at CU Boulder, so that took on some momentum there at Coursera. But one thing we did with Coursera a couple of years ago was drop the tuition for our data science program. Um, Originally, it was $667 per credit, so $20,100 for the degree. Fun fact, it was 667 because someone in our budget office said you can't do 666. So we thought, "Oh, okay, I guess we can't." Um, we dropped it because Coursera said, we think there's an opportunity here if you do drop it to increase scale. And so we did. We didn't need to. Our program was doing just fine. In fact, I remember talking about this at the time at a conference, and someone made a comment about your program must not have been doing very well. You lowered it to increase access. We had double-digit growth every session over session before that we dropped it. We just realized we can reach more people because the idea was you drop it down to $525 per credit. That is, if you take 10 credits a year, 5,250, right? 5,250. That is the maximum amount an employer can write off of their taxes for providing education to their employees. So we said, yes, that will increase affordability for people because not only are we lowering the price for those people whose employers don't have that option, for those people who employers do, now you can get your education for free. And that was what we were all about. I remember long conversations about whether or not we should do this, and two or three of the faculty who are still with us said, it's the right thing to do. It's going to increase access. And I gotta say, that was Coursera who came to us with that idea, and it's been a good one. But going back to the marketing thing, trying to explain that to people is difficult. Yeah, they don't really quite get it. And so we have to provide sample letters that they can send to their employer of how to get reimbursed, that kind of stuff. It's not clear. And not all employers want to provide that, even though they say they provide that benefit, they don't necessarily want to because it takes a lot of work for them to do. Okay, I can stop sharing. You all have access to that working doc, plus you'll have access to the recording here. Um, I included, I think on the first page, my my email, and I can drop it here in chat. I'd be happy to talk about more of this. Oh, this is great, Knox. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing your message now. I'm glad you were able to make it. Astronomy was my absolute favorite course in undergrad. I actually used to work at the Chamberlain Observatory at the University of Denver, which was built at the turn of the century in 1900, and at the time was the largest telescope of its kind. Um, and I took my family up and made them sit in the cold mountains to watch the comet a couple of months ago. So glad you're able to join us. And CU Boulder, by the way, has a very, very cool aerospace program. And I think, if I can brag, most most NASA astronauts in from one university. So, yeah. But I'll drop my email address here in the chat if you want to talk more. This is the stuff that I love doing because it's really about meeting students where they're at and extending the reach of the university and providing really cool education where we can try new things in this space. So
Well, this is as you can tell, I was really interested in everything.
Yeah, that's great.
And
Yeah.
it's it, it's just interesting to compare experiences between a
Yeah.
small institution like Idaho versus
Yeah.
Colorado. And Idaho is trying to go big,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Didn't they just make a partnership with somebody, I thought?
Yeah,
Yeah.
darn. Um, was it Ashford?
Might
Or
have been Ashford. Yeah.
I forget, one of those
Yeah.
biggies, and the state didn't like it, and
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
lost track now if it
Yeah.
ever actually went through.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they wanted to make a big jump, but
Hmm.
I don't know if they have the resources on
Sure.
campus to manage something
Yeah.
that's of that scale.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. Then maybe
Yeah.
it'll be great for them. But
I hope so. I hope it works out, especially for the students and for the faculty and staff who work at those universities. There are different models. We did the OPM model. Georgia Tech sort of did it, really went on their own. They just they have some state funding that helps, but they run on their own. Indiana has a great model where they centralized all of their online so that each campus provided one resource towards building more online. So they centralized it, but then distributed where the production happens. Um, that did not work for us necessarily,
hmm,
but it worked for them, and that's great. So there's more ways to go about it than just the OPM. Yeah,
I, I think overall the hard part is selling it to faculty.
can be absolutely, absolutely. I want to actually exclamation mark and underline that one. One of the key things for us, the only reason we've been able to launch each of those degrees is we had a faculty champion in each unit. And we're a faculty-led institution. And so we really needed the faculty to be on board, obviously. And it was the faculty champions who made that happen. We're grateful to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Faculty are afraid they're going to lose their job because
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
partnering with an OPM and
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
you have to work
Yeah.
really hard to explain that's not how it's going to work. Here's our plan. So,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
well, I think we're at the end.
I think so. This was great, Bob. Thank you for having me and inviting me. And yeah, this was great.
I appreciate it. It's really engaging and
Great.
good, useful information. And hey,
Excellent.
good luck going forward.
Thank you very